Hello, welcome or welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Olinda and I like to make a lot of art. I like to shop for a lot of art supplies and I like to do a lot of DIY projects. So today I'm going to be talking about some of those DIY projects. If you're interested in that, keep on watching. I'm going to probably break it down by what we're seeing here, which would be the drawing boards, the palettes, and then the pochade box that I have back here. So not this. This is something we'll talk about, but this is the pochade box. So we'll be talking about that stuff, and yeah, let's just get into it. So first off, I will start with the palettes. So I have my little art bag. This is the bag that I bring with me most places. This is a Delphonics pouch that I have just covered in pins and buttons. And this is just a little tip. If you have a bag with a bunch of pins and your pins are constantly falling off, which, like, I made this pin myself. This is a little Caran d'Ache crayon. It's like my tattoo that I have. I can't even show you because it's out of frame, but I made this, and this was like that shrink paper, and I used my printer to print out the design, and I colored it in. And then these pins that I'm using, originally I had like the regular squeezy like pin backs, like the normal ones you get on pins, but I would find that like these would get snagged on things. Like I would put this little pouch in a backpack, and upon pulling it out of my backpack, I'd have pins pulling out, and I hated it. It made me so sad. So I went online and I found these little pin backs, and these are awesome because you can tug and tug and this is not going to come off. So these are like locking pin backs, and if you see right here, it's got this little lip. If you pull that, then it will come off. But just normal tugging, it's not going to come off. So they're awesome for that. I replaced all of the pin backs and all of my push pins with these. You can buy a set of them for fairly cheap, depending on where you live. So anyway, that's not a DIY, it's just a tip in case you have a bunch of pins like I do. Okay, so palettes. So I like to engrave and make these little faux art toolkit palettes. That is a link to my website, so if you're interested, I do sell these starting at $10 with the pans included, which I think is a great deal. I have done a custom job on this one where I've removed the lip on it to give more painting space, but normally they come with like a little bit of a lip. I'll show you my first one. So this was my very first one that I ever made and ever engraved, so it was definitely practice. And this is the lip that I'm talking about. So normally it comes with that, with a little foam that I put in there, and I fill it with these pans and I ship it out. I have this mixing space here. Yeah, but recently I had a friend request a custom one, and I have a metal cutting tool that I used to cut off that lip and make it safe to touch, and you can put more pans in it. The mixing space is very helpful. I make sure that it is like a matte mixing space so that the paint isn't beating up when you're working. Yeah, so this is one of my first DIYs that I actually sold besides my stickers. Sorry about my hands, you know, artist hands, paint and stuff all over. We'll get into the stickers. So I'll pull this guy out. This is one of my current working sketchbooks. This pigeon sticker is my own creation. It's my own drawing that I did last year when we did Art Hang Party Tober with the Art Hang Party group. As you can see the sticker. Art Hang Party is a weekly live drawing session that is hosted by Melissa Martin. She is the the master of it. This is the brainchild. There we go. That's what I was thinking of Melissa Martin. She's fabulous. She's a wonderful artist and an even better friend. And yeah, one of the prompts was birds, and I made this cute little pigeon. So turn him into a sticker. He's a matte sticker. I do also do shiny stickers and holographic stickers. There's another matte sticker I made, and then here is a holographic sticker that I made. And that is my little guy Hank. I actually have him tattooed on me. But anyway, so if you want a full video on how I make stickers, it's a whole process, so I can definitely talk about that more. But this is one of my little DIYs. And I basically just use my Epson 2800 printer and my Cricut and my designs within Procreate and the Cricut design studio. So that's how I make my stickers. Again, if you want an in-depth review on how to make those stickers, let me know in the comments and I will make a video. Today I really mostly want to just talk about how I was building palettes, drawing boards, and the pochade box. So we'll get into the other palettes I have in front of us. So this one was a gigantic fail. I didn't intend to ever put duct tape on it. I wanted to make a wooden plein air box that would allow me to bring my oil paints with me wherever I went. But whenever I cut this into this horrible abomination of a box, I realized that I didn't have a strip of wood for the back to attach to this side. Because initially when I cut this was just a wooden box from Michael's, and it was larger. I wanted it to be a lot shorter, kind of more like pocket sized, and I thought that maybe I could get away with just like leaving it this length and just cutting it down. Obviously I couldn't. This didn't work out. This is a fail. I'll have to save it for maybe something else I can use in the future, but this was a fail. Now, I have a lovely friend who actually helped me find the right size of wood because he works with lumber. So I'll bring that over. Okay, so these are the right size of wood. I just picked this up yesterday from him. He is using his router tool to cut in, kind of like this one he was testing on, to cut in so I can have an open space. Now, I do have this little box that's very similar, but it's still pretty small. I wanted it a little bit bigger. So that's why he's going to be helping me with this. But this is what I picked up already cut down to size from Michael's. But I did add a tension hinge. I got a box of 10 of them for really, really cheap on Amazon. And I attached it to these two pieces of wood. And then I attached a Velcro latch because originally I had put some magnets flush in the lid, but they're not wanting to connect whatsoever. So I had to add this Velcro strap. So anyway, so let's open this up. So I made this into this little oil painting box. So I have my palette down below and I have the paper. Unfortunately, I cut it like precisely to the size, so it's kind of stuck in there and it's wet, so I'm just leaving it. And here's the palette. I also cut down to size, and I painted on the back of it with a gray acrylic marker to make it kind of like a gray, almost like a gray glass style palette. That way you can have good value range with your paints and kind of see like where things go in that range of values, if that makes any sense. Hopefully I'm making sense. Sorry I'm rambling, but this will lift out. Because I cut it down to size, I'm gonna have to like take something small and thin, or like even my nail, and I can lift it out and I can clean it. But for now, I'm just kind of leaving the box open to dry. So that is one of my little oil painting palettes. This is eventually what these blocks will look like, just slightly larger format so I can have slightly larger pieces of paper. So that is actually something I'll be working on today. So we're gonna close that one up. Oh, before I do, this right here, this is a sheet of just like a clear acrylic. I got this at Hobby Lobby. It was 99 cents. It came with 2 protector sheets on it, and I just took my scissors, I measured it out to the exact size of the box, and I just kind of drew on it with Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2 to draw the lines, and I just cut along those lines. And that is how this little tiny palette was made, kind of like that. So that's why I had this here. I'm going to use this for this block of wood whenever it's cut down in size, so I can make another palette, because I actually really like how this worked, and I didn't mind just drawing on the back, doing the gray acrylic marker. It worked fine. And then it's not as heavy as like glass, but you can, I found out, get glass cut down to size at like Lowe's and Home Depot. So that's an option. You can buy a sheet of glass in my area for $8.99 and then have them cut it down. So my friend had suggested that I use the plastic first, and then I can take that already measured sheet of plastic into Lowe's or Home Depot and tell them I need the glass cut to this exact measurement. And I was like, that's perfect. Great idea. All right, so I'm gonna close this up. And like I said, I have the tension hinge, and then I just have the Velcro strap. So it just closes up like that. Okay, so originally I bought this tin with that same kind of idea of turning it into some kind of palette. When it first came to me, it was really bent out of shape and it wasn't closing very easily. So I did have to take a hammer and kind of bash in the edges a bit, but it now closes properly. Now on the inside, it has a plastic palette in there. I actually made this one with a little bit of a lip, but not big enough, apparently. And I put some magnets on the back of it so it holds into place, and I could put it here on the top or in the bottom. So this right here is just a piece of a plastic palette that I purchased at Michael's. It was originally from this big thing, and I just kind of outlined where I needed it, and I cut it down with just regular scissors. So and then I just attached some really strong magnets to it because I can use this with my pochade box too. So anyway, for now it's going in here. There you go. And the only thing I don't really like about using this for painting is that the lid just lays flat like that. So it might be better suited just to carry art supplies, and that's okay. I just think the box is really beautiful. I got it on eBay, and it's a really classic looking tin. So yeah, this will eventually turn into either a palette or a little storage box, but figure I would talk about that one too. Next, we have the drawing boards. If you're familiar with Just Go Sketching, they make these drawing boards. They kind of have these like cutouts like this, and they come like with like a faux leather wrap on them and a rubber band strap that kind of, it's a lot thicker. I'll show you one that's very similar. I have one. It's kind of like this thickness. They'll put this rubber band around it. It wouldn't fit around this. This is too big, but you get the gist. So I just have some rubber bands, and I just place them on the board. You never know, you could use them for whatever. Rubber bands are handy. Well, I'm getting it all twisted. Okay, good enough, whatever. And then I have a smaller board. There we go. So the Just Go sketching ones, I believe, come from the UK, and they're a little expensive for me to order here in the States because of shipping and everything. So I decided to just make my own. I also have seen the Stablo wooden sketching boards too from France, but again, they're a little expensive, and I already had this type of material that I wanted to use. I used this material to make a oil painting carrier box, a wet panel carrier, and it's very, very firm. It's like a corrugated plastic. And I know Sarah Burns recently did a video on her sketching boards, and she talked about the corrugated plastic. She said that once it bends, it's bent. So I decided to cut it so that the area where you can bend it is actually going this way instead of up and down, because it's a lot harder to bend it when it's going from side to side. So I really do like this corrugated plastic. It's very, very helpful. It has really protected my oil paintings, and I'll talk about the carrier too, but we're talking about this first and then I'll show you. So I have these two sizes that I made. It all came out of just one sheet of the corrugated plastic. I got my corrugated plastic on Amazon. It was, I think, under $10 for me. You can see that I have these big magnetic sheets on this one and this one. I have like a little piece. Originally, the Just Go sketching boards come with like strips of magnet, probably stronger than these little magnet sheets. However, I already had some of this. I figured I'd put it on there and just see if they're helpful at all. I mean, stuff will still stick to them. As you can see, it is still sticking, but I also have these super strong magnets, and I have a lot of them. So I figure I would adhere these to the sketching boards as well. But like, yeah, it will stick. It will stick to that. So what I have liked to do is this little sketchbook that I have right here will fit with this one. Technically, the big sketchbook will fit with either size as well. I used the small one with my big sketchbook and it was perfectly fine. So with the sketching boards, I have it cut out so that it goes around the pages and it goes from the front and the back. And so I can just kind of open it up to where I'm going to be working. And I made it long enough so that it has plenty of support while I'm out and about and I'm drawing. I don't really have to use a clip to hold it in place because it has so much extra that goes into the back of the sketchbook. It really holds it. So I can hold it with like one hand and I can paint or draw. And that's what I did yesterday. It was great. I also have the rubber band. I can kind of rubber band itself to the sketchbook if I need to, kind of hold it in place, which is also perfectly fine. I'll go around the back and the front of it. So I don't really need a clip, but a clip is nice. So, and I do carry clips with me. What I really enjoy about these sketching boards, and I'll add this big one to this big sketchbook so you can see how it lays. So I'll just stick that one in there, lay that down. Okay. So what I enjoy about these is the versatility of them. Now, this one is too big for my bag, my little yellow bag, but this one is the perfect size. So I've made it so that they're quite portable, and I have, obviously I have plastic pellets that are not going to stick. If you have a plastic palette, you can use the rubber band to kind of hold it open if you wish. But But I have my little homemade palettes that will stick perfectly on there. You can open it up. It lays flat because the lid that I have on here lays completely flat, so you can kind of paint with it. And you can take some little water cups and kind of hook it on there. I have a little tiny metal one too, and it just sits there perfectly. You have this for maybe putting a brush in. You can hold a brush. I have a pencil. If I really want to, I can put a pencil there. Yeah. The way you want to configure them is up to you. What I really like to use, if I have it near my table, here we go. I have some of these metal palettes, and I guess I'll show you on here first. These do open up. They won't cover up the page. They're very well supported on the sketching board. I mean, I'm shaking it and it's moving just a little bit, but it's still staying, which is great. This is a gouache palette, obviously. It's all dry. And they'll hook up there too. So I like the possibilities. I made this one much larger because I have a very large palette, and it's one of my favorite palettes that I've ever made, and I really love using it. So I made it that big so that I can put that big guy up there. But again, it's holding steady. It's very helpful. I'm like shaking it, you can hear my voice. The only thing I would say is that I did get a little bit of fatigue carrying it around. I had to kind of like put my arm underneath the big one and hold it with my hand flat up against the bottom, and then I could draw and paint. But that got a little tiring. So these are a lot more comfortable if you're sitting down, but if you're standing, they will work. I would just suggest trying to figure out what's best for your comfort. So, but they work very well. Also, very cheap to make. If you have the magnets and stuff like I already had, it's super duper cheap. But you can also get cheap magnets. You can get this corrugated cardboard. You can get rubber bands. All of this is really, really inexpensive. So this has been very helpful. So next I have this drawing board. This one I drilled some holes into a plastic clipboard that opens up. I like this version because I can store some stuff in there. It also has this little pencil area. And I had these little rings from making keychains, because I do make keychains as well. And I just kind of stuck them in there so that I can take one of my straps off of my bag, and I can hook the strap in there, and I can hold this up against my body and draw freely. So I can insert a picture so you can kind of see what it looks like. I also attached one of my little quick release tripod pieces to it. So this will go onto one of my little mini tripods. So I can use it to kind of sit it down like a little table, and I can draw. Or I can flip it open and just kind of like let it hang and put some gear there and whatever. Use it as like a little tray table or something. But this has been very helpful. I really enjoy this. This was also really, really inexpensive, using just a strap from a bag that I had already and these little rings that I already had, and then just, yeah, screwing holes into it. And I already had a little mini tripod with the quick release piece, so I just kind of stuck it on there, and it's good to go. It's ready. So I've taken this one out and about for plein air painting. It's been very helpful because it's easy to just sling on my side and just keep going. So this is a great one. Next I have my panel carrier, which is massive, and then my friend Reb, her channel is Made by Reb, which, by the way, if I didn't mention Melissa Martin's channel, it's Melissa Martin Art. so you can go find her. But my friend Reb, she recently went paddleboarding, and she had this great idea of using like a little gum container to put paints in. So I didn't have any gum containers, but I have this like little resin holder for a dentist, and it stays shut pretty well. But it's got these little like wells, and I thought that that would be good for some small portions of paint. And it's very flat and very, very lightweight, so you can just kind of pop it in and take it wherever. Now, this panel carrier, made out of that same corrugated plastic. I cut it down to size. I made this little slit where it bends so I can make a lid. And I added some little zip ties. I cut off the ends, and they don't hurt. They're fine. I kind of like burnt the ends so they're a little softer. And there are those little rings again that I already had from making keychains. I added just a bag strap that I had. I had some Velcro, and there's stuff already in here. But basically, I have these little wooden dowels in here, and they keep the paintings from touching the from touching one another, but also from touching the inside. They keep them kind of like situated, which is really nice. For now, I'm just using it to carry some different panels. So I had this panel in there. But normally a painting would just kind of slide in there, and it would be held kind of suspended. So kind of like that. You can see that there's a nice gap. So if I have a painting in there, I can face it this way and it's not going to touch the inside. So kind of the same concept with the other side. And you can't see very well on this side, but there's some wooden dowels over here too, to keep it from touching the back of the panel carrier. So yeah, right there, I had tape that I put around it, but those are wooden dowels too. So anyway, this is a very large panel carrier. I'm actually going to make a smaller one for my little small paintings in case I make many of them with my new oil painting kit. So yeah, I'm going to make one that's like wallet sized, since I have a lot of that extra corrugated plastic. Lastly, so this is basically nothing. I was going to make this into a travel palette, but again, the way that it lays flat, it's not very conducive to painting. I could, but more for like watercolor rather than like oil. So I don't know, we'll see about that. And then this was just a cheap piece of, it was something for like the Cricut. It was like a cutting board for the Cricut, but it was a really, really cheap version from Michael's. So that's basically nothing. So this is my pochade box, and I made this, and I'll insert some clips of me finding like the wooden frames that I used. Because what I did was I took these two wooden frames, I screwed them together with these tension hinges. I screwed on these D-rings onto the sides. They're so helpful. I'll put in a clip of how this looks whenever it's completely like set up. But it takes almost no time to set up. There is a hole right here that I cut in very crudely with a knife to stick in this metal piece that holds larger canvases. And then I attached a latch so that the box will stay shut. It was staying shut. These magnets actually worked very well, but the heavier it got, like the more painting supplies I put in there, the more likely it was to bust open, and I did not want to lose paints. I also added another quick release to the bottom of this. I just leave this on there because I have the tripod in my car. I'm ready to go. And then the little frames, they came with these little pieces of rope stapled onto the frames very securely, actually. because they're supposed to be used for like hanging signs or whatever. They're like little plaques. I just attached a lanyard that I had and I just made it into like a really crude handle, which I do use. So, all right, let me fold that down and we'll open it up. So this was very plain. I designed this with my acrylic markers, and we'll unlatch this and we'll open it up. So on the inside, I have a whole bunch of stuff. I have more of that palette. That one plastic palette has been cut and used in so many ways. But I have this big strip of magnet, and then I have a little round magnet because it fits perfectly on this side, and I'll show you. So if I lay it down here, it fits perfectly and it's very, very snug. I've used it multiple times for my little mixing palette and all of my brushes. And I have a couple different size holes. I just used my my drill, and I drilled in some different holes to hold my different brushes. So it works like a charm. I do love it. So that stays in there. I also have this sheet of metal right here. For anything that is a magnet, I can just kind of stick it down there. I also have another sheet of magnet like paper, and I stuck that in there just for other things. I usually carry my smaller tubes of oil paints in here and some of the acrylic gouache. I also have some short-handled brushes that I put in here for oil painting. I have this piece of very absorbent sponge, which right now is like hard as a rock. But once you add water to it, it just sucks it up. So I keep this in there to like wipe my brushes on. It's very, very helpful. So I have these little super strong magnets around the sides. This helps with like a water cup holder. I put it off to the side. I'll go grab that so I can show you. Again, this is also a very crude design, but I really don't care. If I'm painting, I don't really care what my stuff looks like, but this holds my water cup off to the side. And on the inside, there used to be magnets that I had glued into the middle, and they were great. However, if I had a certain size of paper that was any larger than where I placed the magnets, I had the issue where the magnets that were holding the paper were in the middle of the painting. And I didn't like that. So what I did was I got this magnetic board off some website, and it has a piece of film on the very back. You pull it off and the whole backside is sticky. So it is stuck in there really, really well on top of the magnets, but it doesn't really matter because I can still move these around. I can move them wherever I need to. So I just keep some magnets on the inside. That one's stuck. I think this one might have had glue on it. Hold on. Okay, I got it. So yeah, I can move these wherever I need to, and yeah, it works. And this was like the perfect size on the inside of this lid. So this has been incredibly helpful. But that's basically it. You know, it was just a few materials. It was the frames, the tension hinges, the magnets and the magnet board, some D-rings. This is really not necessary. This piece of metal on the bottom and this magnet piece, that's not necessary. It really is not. And then the latch. So all in all, very, very inexpensive. Again, I already had the magnets. I already had all of the magnet paper, the metal piece. I had the D-rings and I had the tension hinges. So the only thing I really had to buy were the frames, which were $7.99 a piece at my Michael's. They're probably different at yours, I'm not sure. And I had to buy the little latch, which I got for like a few dollars at a hardware store. I got the palette for a few dollars. Been using it for so many projects. And oh, I added some of these little clips onto the D-rings so they hook onto my brush holder. I mean, it's very inexpensive. You just kind of have to have a little bit of patience and a few tools like a screwdriver and a drill. And it's very, very simple to make. So we'll latch that back up. Yeah, and that is my little pochade box. So if you don't have all these supplies, you can easily find them. You can find the frames, you can find the D-rings. If you have a quick release already on a tripod, you can take that and screw it on there. You can find the latch, and you can find like that piece of metal for the inside with the magnets. So it's really just, do you have the time to put it together? It did not take me that long. It really didn't. And then I added that, the carrier for the oil paintings, and that's like my perfect setup. So this has really helped me paint a lot more out in the wild. I actually took it out into the middle of a lake and used it. Yeah. I just like that you can kind of make it your own. You can design it however you want. Design the accessories for it. It's so simple. I looked online for pochade boxes and they were so expensive. So I was really happy to create this for myself, just with some time and a little bit of effort and materials. So I think even a lot of people will use like old cigar boxes or anything like that. And you can find those at like dollar stores or like Goodwills or other reuse stores. They have them. People sell off those little boxes. So I just got a cigar box on eBay for $4. So just look around and repurpose the box, and you can have your own little pochade box setup, just like me. So eventually I'll probably add some more little doodads to it and make it even better. But for now, it's perfect how it is for me. I throw it in my car. I have my tripod and all of my materials are in the box. So like I'm good to go. I have everything that I need. I usually also throw a water pot in there, but it has a lot of room. So I can throw that in there, and yeah, it closes. There we go. All good to go. So thank you so much for coming to check out all of my little DIY projects I've been making lately. I hope that you found something that inspired you. And if you have questions, if you need more details about different things, if you want a video on something like a more in-depth video, just let me know and I'll try to make one. Yeah. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye. I forgot one thing about this box that I love, if I'm not using oil paints. So, hi, bonus content here. Also just forgetful content. So if I have a metal palette with me, I put these magnets on the side so that they can specifically hold a palette or the water cup. A lot of times I just put the water cup in here, but let me open this up. Boom. Palette, and then mixing palette. So I might like lay it there, and then I have my stuff. So very easy, very accessible. I like to have it right here on the corner for the extra support. That's why I have this magnet and these, so it will fit like right there. And then I can move it over to this magnet. So it's like really, it's on the box. So if I'm mixing, it's not really going anywhere. Yeah. Anyway, I forgot about that. I was rewatching my footage and realized that I forgot a very crucial part of how I use this box, which is for watercolor as well. And of course, a small watercolor palette, even a large watercolor palette. My really long one fits perfectly in the box, which is kind of a standard watercolor palette size, to be honest. We can see if all of this fits in there, oil paints and watercolors. Let's test it. And it does. There we go. So you have the option for both. Also, this latch has a little spot right there, so you can add a small lock to it. So just food for thought. Anyway, thanks again for checking everything out. And again, have a wonderful day. And if you have questions, let me know. Bye.